proud of you guys, and thank you so much for all making an effort to be here today. I know you've all changed schedules and probably traveled, so that says a lot, and we appreciate that very much. And so you've all met your musicians that you're playing with today, but we're gonna introduce you to a couple of other folks here today, and we're gonna put you on the spot, Lynn. This is Lynn Mueller, and I describe Lynn as, well, Lynn is both a jazz scholar and a jazz cheerleader, but I know her best as a jazz cheerleader, and she does great programming of her own, and she does it with the Metuchen Council for the Arts and whatnot. So, Lynn, I know you're the keeper of the keys for somebody famous, so can you share that with us?
Keeper of the keys.
Well,
So, I was friends and close friends and manager of Art Farmer, the trumpeter,
wow.
in the last years of his life. So we have set up a scholarship at William Patterson in Art Farmer's name.
So ergo the scholar and the cheerleader part, as I was mentioning. I want to just personally thank you, Lynn, for all of your support and your generosity. It really is lovely and incredible. And I always get these nice emails from Lynn, and it really makes my day. Because you'll find in the jazz world that sometimes it's a lot. A lot of work and not a lot of credit. So anyway, thank you for being here today, Lynn.
Thank you, Cindy, for all the work you do. It's
Always
amazing.
for you, and always. To my left is a man named Chuck Renata, and Chuck's bio reads a lot. Chuck is scholar, cheerleader, doer, radio talent, Frank Sinatra expert, a Great American Songbook expert, author. What have I missed?
Oh, it's all
Dear
good.
friend, I'll give you that
I
one
like
too.
that.
That one back in.
I like it.
So I wanted to always ask this question in public, so I'm going to ask it, put you on the spot.
Uh-oh.
So you can give us a quick answer. How did you go from being a police officer
Oh.
to being a on-air radio personality expert?
If you can answer that question, I'd like to hear it. No, I was just very lucky. I always say I was a very odd child. I was 2 years old asking for record players and records. And I just feel like I had music and vinyl in my blood. And I was just luck. I don't know if you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell
Yes.
and The Outliers. Great book, and he talks about the 10,000 hour principle. You can be an expert on anything if you spend 10,000 hours practicing. And he makes a very good case, and I guess that was really my luck, because I put in a lot of time making tapes, listening to records when other kids were playing baseball, and all of a sudden I got a call to consult on a project, and that opened a lot of doors for me.
So the luck he's talking about is the effort you put in to be prepared, so
Well,
that
yeah.
when the magic happens, you're ready.
Yes, that's true. I got a shot to present an idea, and I walked in and I laid it out on the table about as long as these three tables together, and I said to myself, I was 25 years old, and I said, I have nothing to lose. And I said, this is what you need to do, A, B, C, D, and the guy's eyes rolled out of his head. He said, you're hired? I said, for what? He said, don't worry, you're hired, we'll figure it out. And he did, and that was 32 years ago. So I've been fortunate to work with the Sinatra family, his daughter Nancy, a reissue producer at Sony Music. I'm the only guy that's still in that division after 32 years. Who'd have thunk that? Because I was a cop for 27 years and retired 12 years ago. But I did this on the side, so it was kind of fun.
And you're now back on the radio.
I am. I produced and co-hosted Nancy Sinatra's radio show at Sirius XM for 15 years. And when that ended, I took a little break because I needed it. And then I got a call from a jazz station in San Diego, and they asked me if I would host a weekly show, and I said, definitely, it's great. So it's been, I actually only started this new show about 4 months ago, so we're doing pretty well with it. But, you know, you guys really amaze me because I used to play the drums, and I love the drums, right? I was in jazz band, I was in marching band. Here's the thing, marching band I had no problem with. I would have been a professional musician, but I could not, never felt comfortable playing in front of people on a stage. I just didn't, I felt so uncomfortable, I said, I can't do this. So, but I really admire what you guys do, it's amazing, and, you know, I love hearing it, I love playing it, I love sharing it. I just can't do it myself. But, no, that's why I leave it to you guys.
Everyone needs an audience, right? So
Look,
we appreciate
if I could
that.
leave you with one thing, it's, you know, I never would have dreamed as a kid that my life would have taken the turns that it did, because I didn't go to school for music, I didn't go to school for writing, but I've written 6 books, I've worked with a lot of major people, I'm friends with Quincy Jones and a lot of the big people in the jazz world. I was friends with Bill Holman, and I mean, Johnny Mandel, I wrote a book with him, composer and arranger, and, you know, I've just been very lucky. So, you know, don't take that, always have gratitude for the luck that you're given, but if you get that opportunity and you have a shot, kick the door wide open, because you have nothing to lose. Just do it. And by the way, don't let yourself get pigeonholed, because most people look at me and they're like, wait a minute, you're a cop. Like, how do you, like, I turn on the television and you're on TV, or I listen to the radio, and, you know, you can do whatever you want. It doesn't matter what your day job is, you know, or your night job, so, you know, however it works out. You can do anything you want. I'm living proof of that, so, you know.
Thank you, and I will thank you for supporting us. You know,
I love you guys.
the worst thing anyone can ever say to me is, oh, I've been, the New Jersey Jazz Society, I didn't know we had a New Jersey Jazz Society, and then I want to just pray that the floor opens and sucks me up whole. I mean, I feel like we work so hard, Sandy works so hard to make sure we get the word out, and then people still don't know us. But New Jersey is full of really amazing, historically as well as currently, you know, jazz talent and jazz cheerleaders and stuff. So anytime you can advocate for us, we're all very much appreciative of that. We're going to go around. This is my colleague James Pansula. James is one of the Jazz Society's board members. James has been involved with the scholarship program from the beginning, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. You can speak, yes. And so James is our quiet, silent force in the background. He's always he's been not only physically active in dealing with the scholarship program over the year, but financially very generous as well. So James, thank you for that.
Yeah. Going around like a crazy person to keeping open jams open and going every week in New Brunswick and Jersey City and Teaneck.
Have any of you,
Awesome.
do any of you
Yeah.
participate in that? Have you met James before?
We will.
Okay,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
we'll keep going, you'll meet him later. To my right, Mr. Noel Cohen. Noel is a jazz scholar as well as a very lovely friend of the Jazz Society. And I'm trying to think of a good question, a good prompt for you, Noel. Noel is also an author, so maybe you want to talk a little bit about that, how you came to that, how you came to your scholarly pursuits in jazz.
Well, I've gotten a promotion today to be in the company of such esteemed people. Quite an honor. Okay, so I spent a lot of time looking into the legacies of some musicians that are not so well known. So if you want to know about Gigi Grice, or you want to know about Frank Strozier, or you want to know about Lucky Thompson, and that just a small sampling, I'm your guy. Okay. And all that information is on my website. And
Make a plug, what's your call?
it's addictoys.com. Addictoys.com. And if you have any feedback, I'd love to get it. yeah, so, that's about it. And I work closely with Lynn Mueller
Correct.
on various projects too. So,
Yeah, we did a series, an education series with Metuchen a couple summers ago. That we called
COVID.
During COVID, yeah, when we all pivoted to be, to do on-air, streaming, then we've partnered with Metuchen to do some other stuff with them, so it was really great. And we learned a lot in our on-air. And by the way, just to speak about on-air, so our December show is a young lady named Summer Camargo. Summer is, well, there's kind of 6 degrees of separation here, but Summer came to us through one of my colleagues back here's neighbor. Said, oh, there's a young lady at Juilliard. Great. So we called her, and she was willing to do a streaming, because not everybody was willing to do streaming. They couldn't quite figure it out and everything. And so we did a dry run with her because we were newbies at it, and she couldn't have been more unbelievably willing and a professional. She does her show. It was great. It was a duet, right? The pianist
Yes,
and
Tyler Henderson was it.
Tyler Henderson and Summer. Okay, so you never know who's watching streaming, by the way. You just never know. Just leave the sentence right there. Sandy, why don't you take it from
I
here?
think his name is Jason Pickett, who is the director of the Saturday Night Live Jazz Band.
Oh, yeah.
Summer got a call from him. Months
Holy
later.
crap.
How would you like to be part of that? Wow. And she still is.
That's really great.
And I was so taken with her from an admin perspective, when she agreed to do this, and we were all learning on our fly, and so talk about being ready, right? Like, she brought it, and the universe brought it right back to her. So she is going great guns. We're going to get to you, but she's also, was on the radar of Wynton Marsalis, and that doesn't hurt. But again, she was prepared and ready, and so, she brought her A game. So, anyway, we're gonna move on. My other colleague, Sandy Josephson, editor of Jersey Jazz Magazine and PR guru, goddess, and, no, God, not goddess. And because Sandy does his thing, this show was promoted last night on News 12.
Well, I always send out a press release on this, event every month, and sometimes we get better coverage than others, but Friday night I was just watching TV and I'm checking my phone, and there's an email from News 12 New Jersey, and they said, we're gonna feature you, not me, but feature your concert on the 10 o'clock news, which they did. It's still photos of all 4 of you guys. You can find it online. And then they said, but we'd like some photos and video from Sunday because we're going to feature it again Sunday. So it's going to be on tonight at 10 o'clock.
All right, great.
So we're scrambling here. Vanessa, our lovely videographer behind us, she's gonna take some shots, the professional ones, which will go on the website, and then eventually, that's another whole story. It's not her problem, it's the weak link is right here. And then we're going to take some phone shots today, and we're gonna email them up, and they'll be ready to upload tonight, so.
Well, and the best thing is I have a name now at News 12 New Jersey for future.
Oh, that's great.
And can I just, that is a golden nugget right there, so you're all, most of us at the table are still do you have a business card generation? And I have a really, really jam-packed Rolodex and people and whatnot. You guys are gonna do it on your phone and keep your phone, but I'm gonna encourage you to keep a backup because I have the backup, I still have all the cards. You are not gonna have business cards. So, as Sammy just said, it's who you know. This business is about who you know. So you need to start keeping a journal, a log, whatever, people you meet, getting their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, whatever you can get, contact information, because trust me when I tell you, you're going to need it again, sometime. So our last VIP in the room, Mr. Jason Olane. Jason is the Vice President, yes. Jason is the Vice President of Programming for Jazz at Lincoln Center, did I get that right?
Yep.
Yes. And Jason is also one of the judges on our competition panel, and we are so grateful for that because I know it's a lot of work, and You haven't told me no, so I'm hoping you're still on board for the coming year? Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I live in Jersey.
Okay. So, I'm trying to think of a good question for you, Jason. Jason was just in Australia. I guess I should ask you, do you know what time it is? Because you were just in
I've
Australia.
had a week to adjust,
recover?
so I'm cool.
Okay. So, what would you like to share with this group?
I think the good advice all the way around so far is like you can do anything you want, you know? I mean, don't get pigeonholed. Back up your contacts. You're gonna use all those people that you meet over the course of your career. You know, you're probably a little ways away from needing to have management or a booking agent, but until then, you're your own booking agent, you're your own manager, you're your own band leader, and so, you know, you're gonna be the one responsible for your career, whether it's on the side and you're not a professional musician, or something that you wanna do for the rest of your life, you know, and so I'm sure these working musicians can give you some great advice, you know, to go forward, but, you know, I think that, you know, there's a lot of like nuggets that you can take, but, you know, I guess I would just say as a presenter and somebody's promoter, besides having your own sound and being distinctive, and, you know, being able to play tunes and fit with other people, it's, one of the other things is like being on time, of course, knowing the music, but it's also being cool and being a human being and being a person and being who you are. Because most of the time you're going to be working with other musicians and with presenters, you're not going to be playing music. You're going to be either on your way to the gig, waiting around at the gig, leaving the gig, rehearsing, sitting right. You're going to need to be like having a good ability to get along with people. And same thing with the presenter. You know, you want to, you know, you should always look out for yourself and ask for the things that you need, but there's a way to do it. It's by being cool too. You know, I've been doing this business for a long time now, since my early 20s, and I've worked with pretty much everybody, starting when I ran a club called Yoshi's in Oakland, California, where I was working with, you know, the living legends were walking. In fact, Elvester and I met. We first met, and he came through the first time with Betty Carter.
And then a month later with
And then a month later, I'm like, who is this guy? A month later, he comes through with Abby Lincoln.
Oh, wow.
And we're the same age. I mean, I was booking the club, I was 25, and you probably were right around
I
the
have
same.
so much to piggyback after you finished.
So,
This
you
is
know,
incredible what
so
this-
like every week that came through, it'd be, the next week would be Tommy Flanagan, or Hank Jones, or Joe Pass, or, you know, it was just, they were all working at that time, Benny Carter, you know, Charlie Hayden, the Brecker brothers, whoever it was. And very few of them, they were all so easy and great to work with. And the ones that weren't, chances are you weren't gonna work with them again. Because I don't need the headache, I didn't need the hassle, unless you were somebody like, that was only one guy. Like Charlie Hayden. Not saying Charlie was difficult to work with, Charlie was difficult to work with. Charlie, but there was only one Charlie Hayden, you know, so of course you're gonna work with him. But other than that, if you're a little bit difficult, there's 1,000 other people I'd rather work with. So that's just a little bit of advice.
I think that is, I mean, it's unbelievably true, because even in my small capacity for programming here, I mean, Sandy and I talk it all the time, and we'll come up with a suggestion, I'm like,
Yep.
nope,
It is.
too difficult, like too much drama, too much, and I don't have, I mean, I'm a volunteer, I mean, you know, I'm not even getting paid to be of use, like, it's just so, I mean, trust me when I say I will, be like, go, nope, I have, you know, people that I would recommend for another job is also as important as if people that I would hire, right? Because sometimes I know that there's no way our budget would be able to hire somebody, but somebody will ask me about somebody else and I'll be like, yes, 100%, or do you have another suggestion? I mean, I try not to say terrible things, but it happens. But yeah, I mean, do you have another suggestion? So don't be that person. And you guys have all been terrific, by the way. Your correspondence has been terrific. Your replies have been terrific. And people notice that. I mean, I'm maybe more than others, but I really notice that. I notice if the answers don't come back. I notice if it's not even a sentence. I notice if it's, you know, vague and you've missed the mark altogether. I mean, I notice. So I'm not the only one who notices. So,
Could I add?
yeah, please.
Okay, so always have a good website. I produce jazz events in Metuchen, New Jersey, Metuchen Jazz. Always have a good website. Facebook is fine, Instagram is fine, but it's great for a presenter to be able to get everything at one spot, not try to search around, okay? Another thing is, dress like Art Farmer. Suit coat, kerchief in your pocket, tie, because people are coming out to see you perform. And you want to respect the people that they've spent their time and energy to come and see you. I agree the audience should also dress properly for you when you perform. Sometimes that doesn't happen, but if you want to get hired again, dress sharp, guys. Okay? Play sharp. I mean, no, not sharp, but play great.
Not flattering.
And that's right.
Let's hear back.
And yes, because business cards are still great things to have. I have a notebook where I put all the business cards by, like drummers, trumpet players. So if I decide, okay, for this gig, I think I'll need a trumpet player. Let's take a look here and see what I've got in this card folder. That helps me, okay? Makes it much easier for me.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to that, don't make it difficult for people to contact you.
Yeah,
You will be
exactly.
surprised. As an editor of a magazine, when we decide we want to interview somebody, 9 times out of 10, it's not a problem, but there are people that, don't they, why do they make it so difficult?
Yeah, on your website, make sure you have an email, whether it's an info at your name, booking at your name, or just your Gmail address.
Yes.
Don't have us try to fill out a contact form.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, delete, I'm moving on to the next person. I don't have time to fill out a form and wait for you to get back to me.
Very true.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited this year to have Alvester join us. Alvester is one of my very personal favorite musicians, I guess is how you put it. What I love about Alvester, number one, he's a killer drummer, but what I love is to watch you play drums because you always look so joyous. And drummers can look so scally-faced and, mean, like they're beating the living crap out of that kit, and you're just like, wow. And you always bring such joy. So I was so delighted when you were available for today. So I don't know if you all know, but Alvester is from a 2-musician family household, which I can only imagine is complicated at its.
No, it's easy.
No?
I know my place. She's the boss 2 times over.
Smart man.
She's the wife. That's the first boss. And she's the
Smart
main lady.
man. Very smart man. But Alvester teaches. Now you teach at quite a few places.
I teach at
and-
Montclair State University, NJJS Jazz for Teens, and Jazz House Kids. But right now, the younger programs for the younger people, I'm not able to teach this semester because I'm on the Broadway show Gypsy.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so if y'all didn't just make a little side for that, so if you want really good seats, you contact.
Well, I have a discount.
How-
I can get you seats for $250.
Yeah, well,
That's
that's
Which
what.
is a good price.
That's a good price for the house seat, right?
Yes, that
Oh,
is.
but to see Audra up that close, come on, it's gonna be amazing.
She's phenomenal.
Beyond. I am,
There's so much music in that woman.
oh my
There's-
God.
There's so much music in Camille A. Brown, the choreographer,
Yeah.
and her associates, and George C. Wolfe, the director.
Yeah, and,
I worked with George
were
and
you on
Audra
Shuffle
on
Along?
Shuffle Along,
Yeah, that
which
was
is
amazing.
extremely historical because it was the first black musical on Broadway that featured a black kiss, that featured syncopation, that featured tap dance. And as a jazz musician, I of course highly relate to those, and as a black man, I highly relate to
Okay,
those.
so you're perhaps not familiar with the music from Shuffle Along, but Shuffle Along was a period piece,
20s, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
U.B. Blake and Noble Sissy.
Yeah, so my point is contextually it was jazz-esque from the 20s.
It reshaped Broadway, and
Yeah.
it's the first time that jazz was presented
Yeah.
on Broadway. And a lot of the things that you hear now, even though it might be transformed, and we think of certain Broadways like these kind of things, it's still the style of Broadway was reshaped by that musical. Because prior to that, it was like operettas. People would come out and sing waltzes and oompa the whole way. And now this show brought syncopation and swing. It was a prototype swing even back then, but it was still. It was so revolutionary that they had to take the street that it was on, which was up by where Lincoln Center is now, and change it from a two-way street to a one-way street. There was so much like hubbub about the show that eventually the Ziegfeld Follies started to steal the dancers from that show to get that flavor.
Well, so the point I also want to make on this is obviously Alvester is very well known as a jazz drummer, but clearly his book has more than just jazz. So if you're playing in a Broadway pit, that is not a job for the fair or faint. You have to be a killer musician to be in a pit. So obviously you have more than just jazz chops. You have
Absolutely. Yeah,
all
I was
kinds of
I was
chops.
called because of my knowledge of the history. Like I love Baby Dodds. I love Papa Joe. I've researched those individuals a lot. I've listened to that style. And knowing Papa Joe, like this is the thing about, I feel with jazz, excuse me, I feel that a lot of times we forget that ultimately we're trying to, like Billy Hart says, who's like one of my mentors, I teach beside him at Montclair State, we're here to uplift the common man. And so, but to do that, we have to tell a story. And so when I'm playing the drums, I'm trying to enable whoever's telling the story up front. I'm telling my story to help you tell your story. And I'm reshaping my story, like with your compositions. You see how I'm conferring, I'm glad you gave me input. And that's the thing, that's the goal. I'm trying to tell a story. And it's the same principle in Broadway, I feel. So listening to Papa Joe talk about all the dancers that he met, like how he listened to Baby Dodds, how he listened to Mr. Empire State, Sonny Greer, who also, how he listened to Eddie Richter, the dancer, how he listened to Bilbo Jangles Robson, who's from my hometown, Richmond, Virginia. You know, that kind of sense of drama and theater, I bring it to the music because I worked with Betty Carter. She always was talking about theater. She was always saying, we gotta give them something. I want these, like when like we did this summer. He was in Jazz Ed, and not Jazz Ed, and it's my first year teaching Jazz Ed, which brought me to New York, was Jazz Ed back in 1993. Betty heard me at the Monk competition, and she brought me to New York. But that sense of drama and seeing a bigger picture where it's not just about me, it's not just about these changes, or can I impress some musician in the audience, or can I play this fast. It's about telling a story, lifting up people. That's I think is what I get out of playing Broadway. I think to myself, man, like some people would boo-hoo what I'm doing. They would say, oh, that's not jazz, To me, it's still, regardless. I think beyond jazz. I think beyond being pigeonholed. I think that I play the drums to uplift people, and whatever that means, because to me, jazz in the beginning, and always will be fusion music. Before the word fusion came along, it pulls from so many different experiences. So that's why I could care less about if someone thinks, oh, you're only playing this style, or you play this style, or that. No, I play all styles, and it comes into jazz. That's what makes jazz great. I remember one point, teaching a class, it was like, at NJPAC, we have a hip hop division, we have a dance division, we have a theater division, and we have the jazz division. At one point during COVID, we had, we're on Zoom, and we had like one of those collective things where all the different divisions meet. So it was going to be a day of hip hop and jazz. And so I pulled together a playlist, like various people playing music, and we would talk about it. So I pulled together some of the music of Buckshot and LaFunk. Do you remember that group? You ever heard of it? Okay, so it's a group that Branford had in the 90s, and it was a combination of hip hop and jazz. He had a DJ that could literally, I heard this DJ play the blues, scratching. You could hear his name is DJ Apollo, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I remember hearing that band in Paris while I was on the road with Abby Lincoln. And so flash forward decades later, I'm playing some of that music, and I'm listening to it, I'm like, wait a second, I've heard this before. And I'm like, what is this? Oh, this is such and such saxophone. And I'm texting Branford, and I'm saying, how did you get the inspiration for this? Did this come out of such and such? And he's like, no, it didn't come from that. Everything I do comes from somewhere else. And I thought that was kind of cool, because I was trying to pigeonhole him, thinking I knew what the sound was. He's like, no, that came from this, so I missed the mark. But still, it was a great lesson in that. I think great music always takes an inspiration from places that we never would have expected. So don't let yourself be pigeonholed. That's important, because it also financially can hold you back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll be calling you about those tickets for.
Sure. Let me know. I'd be happy to
I would
give
appreciate
you the link.
it
It's a
very
special
much.
link. Yeah.
So, we're going to go to Miss Marianne McSweeney. Marianne also has a very deep background with being a Broadway musician, and you're in which show now?
Water for Elephants.
I loved it. Couldn't have loved it more if I had been one of the aerialists. So Marianne was with us last year and was gracious enough to join us again this year. So you don't always make your only living as a musician, do you? Or
I
do
mean,
you?
I've
No.
been mostly a musician and teacher. In the pandemic, I did get my real estate license.
Okay.
Is that what you were getting to?
Right. So she
In
diversifies.
Massachusetts, because we were living there.
Right, okay.
And I'm like, well, is music coming back? I don't know, but I'm just gonna do this, because I didn't ever have an opportunity to do anything else, because, you know, bass players are busy, and I just thought, why not try something else? And it's kind of like jazz, it's the same thing. You know,
Right.
being with people, communicating, you know, being on time, all that stuff I've learned in music, it's the same stuff. So I'm doing that part-time, but it's hard, because I've been doing this show and my own projects. I have like, you know, whatever, 3 projects going right now.
So the reason why I love having Marianne with us is that she is kind of the queen of diversification, and she just gave you 4 things that she's doing. She's, you know, in a Broadway show. Still doing part-time with real estate. She is working on 3 of her own separate projects. So she's obviously very busy and working at, you know, various parts of your brain and your, you know, your career. But I don't remember off the top of my head, did you go to school for music? Yes.
I did,
Yes.
yeah. So I've been playing, I was a pianist and a violinist first.
Oh, that's
in the
right.
classical
Yep, yep.
world. And, you know, I saw Ray Brown play at the Concord Jazz Festival, and I'm like, what am I doing? That. I'm like, and my parents were just like, no. And I said, yeah. And I kind of said, don't worry, it's a hobby, you know, that kind of thing. And I kind of had to, like, I wouldn't say hide it, but kind of keep it on the DL, you know, while I was still.
It's kind of hard to hide a bass.
It was difficult. Like, it's just, you know, I like put it behind a couch or something. But, you know, my mom would drive me to gigs, you know, we started booking gigs when I was 15, so, like, throw that thing in the station wagon, get the band in there with the Leslie. Remember the Leslie amp? It was like huge with the Fender Rhodes and my friends, and we go off and do gigs instead of working at McDonald's or something.
This is a Leslie for the woman or Leslie for the bass?
A Leslie for the keyboard.
Oh, for the keyboard.
For the Fender Rhodes,
Okay.
not for the bass, but I did have a huge bass amp too, ridiculous. So anyway, yeah, I said it was a hobby, and then I kind of kept going on my classical thing for years, and then when I got to college, I made the decision to just be a bass player. I was a double major, piano and bass for a while, and then I was like, hey, this is too much. So I just made that decision in college and kept going. You know, and took a while to get out of college because I was doing gigs. I would leave for a while, and my teachers are like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm working to pay for college, and I'm playing my bass. So I didn't see a problem with that. They did, but that's okay.
Funny that matriculation nonsense that they want you to actually finish.
And I did finish, it just took a while. And so I was in LA for 10 years doing, you know, like symphonic work, jazz gigs, studio stuff, and I didn't like LA, so I was like, I'm coming to New York, and, you know, that's been 30 years, like 1993, I think, when I got here, or something, yeah, same time. And I knew I wanted to be in New York because of the jazz, like, it's just a thing, you know, it's my first love, really. Like, no matter what's going on in my life, I always have that. You know, no matter, even in the pandemic, when we really couldn't really play together, you know, my husband, who's a trombone player, we would always listen, we would play duo, we would invite people over to our deck. There was always a community, which I tell my students, you're gonna always have a community, no matter where you go in the world. It's kind of cool. You'll find the jazz musicians to hang out with and play with, you know, it's the best thing ever. And I'm a big believer also in diversifying, so that, you know, I not only tell my students, please, you know, either get a side degree or whatever. I did go to business school for a little while, and I got my, like a certificate at Fordham, so, you know, I think it's important, just, cause we have to be our own, you know, like everybody said, we have to do it all. We have to have our websites, and, you know, I need an assistant, but then you have to train the assistant. Like, so, you know, it's great. It's a great life, and I'm happy to be here and to meet all you guys and play with you all. You know, you guys sound great, and it's great to see, you know, like, it's been a year and how you've grown as a musician. I love that part too. You know, I don't know. I'm going
That's,
on.
nope, it's perfect.
Beautiful
You
stuff.
hit all the marks.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom.
Beautiful.
So lastly but not leastly, so David has joined us this year as our music director and as mentor, etc. Don was, who usually has that role, had a family problem out of town, and so he's gonna come swooping in maybe at the last minute, and he'll join you guys on stage. But I knew we needed a new ND this year, so
Not really.
yes, well, maybe not, okay. So anyway, so David also has quite a varied background in the sense he's, obviously you've heard he's not American, so he came here years ago, I won't say how many, and David has been a teacher and a musician as well as an arranger and a composer, and he's working on some new projects. Now why don't you talk about your foray into scoring stuff?
I could do, but you know what, I'm just thinking that, you know, I will definitely address that, but for the young musicians here, I'm seeing this a lot with younger musicians. They're not exhibiting the kind of faults that I would attribute to myself when I was that age. I thought that world was, you know, I was trying to learn how to play this music in another country, and we didn't have the internet back then. So while people growl and grumble about that, I realized how many steps it has helped you all skip, because you can go straight to music that appeals to you, not what record companies are telling you is the hip thing to listen to right now. So I come across kids who are 9 years old finding Lester Young by themselves, and maybe they go elsewhere with it, but the reason they're listening to Lester Young is because something about his playing sparked off something on their terms. And so where am I going with this in particular is when I heard your compositions today, particularly you set a mood, each of you. I heard it on the recordings, actually, because there was the big band, and I couldn't get over the maturity of the writing on both your parts. And thinking about where I was at that age, and I matched you for enthusiasm, but that might have been where I draw the line. I didn't, so it's just wonderful to see that it's almost like you bypass a lot of what, you know, to give you an example, when I was your age, you know, there were people approaching me to teach. I'd never taught before, and I had a pretty bad attitude to it. I thought it was something I did because I wasn't getting enough gigs. There wasn't a desire to, I didn't know that years later it would become a prominent part of my life. I'm probably not the one that should be saying this, but it's come back to me that I do have an ability to nurture and inspire people, and I think it has come from a rule that I hold very dear to my heart, that if I'm going to, for want of a better word, criticize something, I have to A, offer at least one possible solution, and B, I also must accompany it with a reference to something I think you're doing well that I noticed. Because sometimes that might be something you're working on and you're not sure about it. And if somebody comes up and says, you know, I really like how you approach that, the changes there, or how, but honestly, I was fascinated by, you know, I deliberately held back a little bit because I wanted you guys to have the experience of describing your music to us, and you saw in the case of yours where you talked about the Andalusian reference, how that altered the way we approach playing it.
Yeah.
You know, you reveal something to us. So not to leave Sydney hanging, this was my last. Most recently, because of my arranging, and I got known for string writing in particular. I used to hear people say, "You should be writing in Hollywood. You should be," you know. And I had young kids, and that was the difference. I wasn't about to roll the dice when it affects other people's lives to move out there. The big moves already happened. I came from Dublin to New York, right? And but then I got word that I live walking distance from Fort Monmouth, down Red Bank and Shrewsbury, and I'm in Oceanport. And the word came down that Netflix are building 12 sound stages there. And just to give you an idea how my crazy mind works, I said it's a sign. And I had this visual of, don't ask why, the old Dublin Georgian doors and me knocking on it going, "Hello, you don't know me." I know I look a bit older than somebody you'd expect to be, but I'd really like to write for film. But that thing kicked something off in me. I started to reach out to former students who are now writing for HBO and stuff, and I said, "I'm not trying to take your gig, I'm very proud of you, but what does somebody like me do?" And I said, "You've got to treat me like I'm ground zero." And they all told me the same thing, it's you got to pair with a director. So the first director I get to, I won't say the name, because this was not what I was looking for, and it sounds I was being ungrateful. He said, "Give me something 4 minutes long and I'll edit footage around it." And I said, "That's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who's going to say, I need you to write some scary music for this scene, some romantic. This is from the 16th century." I was looking for that kind of challenge. So I just got my first assignment, the last, this is where Sydney was going, this last week or so. Then I promise I'll shut up. It's scoring a documentary on the Great Migration and Asbury Park. Wow. And it's already it's given me, you know, just in the course of maybe 30 seconds, I have to delve into, you know, Jamaican music and, you know, Afro-Cuban and a whole, you know, the lady in particular that's featured, she mentions the Irish, the Italians, and she was talking about how everyone was living in the same neighborhood and what that can inspire musically. But I'll close out by saying in the last year, I've added to my, I've been teaching advanced students and using the word with, you know, some flexibility, and I was asked to take beginners in a school that I started to be a presence in. I wasn't originally going to teach there. And the beginners then got, I think they saw I was very, you know, I was actually enjoying observing the discovery of music for a beginner that I hadn't had in many years, right? And I was asked, because of the patience I appeared to have, would I take on these neurodivergent kids? And I've no training in that. And if this doesn't make me sound any crazier than I already have, I could feel my mother, who's passed away many years ago, behind me going, "Do it." That has now led to Alina, who we both know, not directly, but it's the same thing. She asked me, would I help with prisoners? And so the feeling I'm getting from this is, it's as a jazz musician, it's like somebody throwing a chord voicing at you in the middle of your soul, and you go, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And that's the way I'm approaching.
So the trick there is, I only can think of the phrase "old dog learning new tricks." Not that you're either, but the point is, you know, at this stage in your career, you're opening yourself up to newness, you know, which is great. So it's at any stage of your career, I think the key is to remain open to some newness and to, you know, different expression. And if your example with the day of hip hop, meshing with jazz, meshing with tap dancing, meshing with whatever, isn't a lesson in all of us being open to new combinations, new partnerships, new ways of thinking about things, you know, because in some ways, what's new, right? We've all, you know, the great masters already did it, right? I mean, there's been a lot of already, they wrote scores of gorgeous voicings and this, that, and the other. We've evolved to here. Now what are we going to do to keep evolving forward, and, you know, everybody brings something different. Both of the compositions, you know, are vastly different, which I find wonderful. And, you know, I'm just giving you the prompt, when you are introducing today, I hope you'll share whatever the motivation was, what you shared with your colleagues, and then they changed how they approached the music. And I think that's amazing. So I think the audience will greatly appreciate learning how you were inspired for that as well.
That's art.
Yeah,
That's the highest level.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When you start bringing the people in, like what
Yeah.
you just said, thank you. When you bring the people in, tell them the story. That's gonna, they'll be, oh, then they'll hear you differently. They'll be waiting to hear those images that you've already handed to them. And
So-
that's beautiful. Like Joe, we didn't get a chance to find out.
Yeah,
What's
no,
your
I was
story?
thinking about
What's
that.
the story of your song?
Yeah, so I guess I was just thinking the story for mine kind of came after the fact, or better said, I realized what it was about maybe after I had written it. I write at the piano all the time, never write on saxophone. And I had just gotten out of like a relationship that was like, you know, maybe a year and a half of my time, and I had like, you know, just broke it off very instantly.
Heartbreaker.
Yeah. And so I wrote this song, and you know, I didn't really have a title or anything, but it had like a vibe, you know.
What's the song called again? Please take me back.
Around the Sun.
Around the
So
Sun.
then I ended up going home. I'm from the South too. I'm from North Carolina.
Oh, cool.
And so I went home, and I just keep playing this song, and you know, I've been playing it for a while, and like changing it and altering it. And then eventually I realized that it had been a year since I had, you know, left this person, and I like didn't even really, you know, like it was like I kind of felt like I was super like past it almost, you know, like I felt like, but at the same time that I was still like not moved on.
Did you think of something?
Yeah, exactly. And then her and I like reconnected at one point, and then I think I realized like, oh, I haven't done as much like thinking about this as maybe necessarily I should have. And so I think maybe the full title is like Around the Sun and Back Again.
Nice.
But yeah, eventually I think it, you know, kind of that inspiration came to me, and then it did help me move on in a way, you know, expressing it in that way. And then yeah.
That's beautiful. That's good.
So I'm gonna give you a little pointer. When you're in front of the audience today,
Yeah.
you need to think this through, and, you know, for your 2 sentences or less, so to speak,
Yes,
for
yeah,
how you
I'm
wanna
not
present your
gonna-
story. So this is gonna be our 6 degrees of separation of Esther, but it's not gonna be very far. So the woman who has sponsored the scholarship program, Nan Hughes, and Audra went to Juilliard together.
Wow.
And Nan is she is a mezzo-soprano, classically trained mezzo-soprano, but she loves jazz and does a great job with jazz music, and she is very much into supporting, you know, young musicians. And nobody, I'm telling you, in this business, except maybe Audra, but nobody tells a better story to set up a song than Nan does. And whether she's doing a classical piece or she's doing a, you know, and she has had a very wonderful career doing modern music, which she says she hates, but she's considered the world's leading expert in modern music, where she has been known to stick her head in a piano and plunk a string and sing a weird note. And when I first moved to New York, I lived with her, and she was working on a piece that was being premiered, and I thought I was going to jump out of the apartment window because it was so cacophonous. And I finally one day I said to her, I said, oh my God. And she is a technician of all technicians, so it's beyond perfect. She's walked into symphony and questioned the director, you know, the conductor, because the conductor wasn't doing what, you know, and she's had to have, you know, like, do you want it that way or do you want it the way that it's on the music, you know? And then it flips people out because, you know, that music is kind of cray-cray, I'm just saying. But if you're an expert, you're an expert.
Detail.
But she can set up a song like nobody's business, which totally puts the audience right here. And after the show, people come up to her and you hear the stories that they say to her, like, oh my God, you so made it resonate with me, or I never realized that that was this song, was what that song was about, or that's an interesting interpretation, because she always does her research like crazy to make sure that she's, you know, gotten it all correct. So again, you know, when you're storytelling, and you have to be ready
Well, we
to.
kind of put him on the spot too, right?
Well, we
Just
did,
there,
but no, he's not. No, I'm not gonna.
But
no.
I know, and
Those
I'm not
are three
disagreeing with you,
emails.
I'm just curious though, and he could tell me to mind my own business, and he'd be absolutely within his rights here. Was the music part of the healing, were you struggling with the fact that you'd ended the relationship? I'm trying to
Yeah.
read with it.
Yeah, I think.
Or were
that-
you relieved that it was all over, or, you know, is
I
it-
think both. I think it's, you know, it's just super complicated. I wasn't exactly sure. And it's almost that feeling of being unsure and then realizing like a year has passed and, you know, where have I
So,
been?
to Sydney's point, this could be probably without you having to give away your complete inner
Exactly,
to an
yeah,
audience.
yeah.
You could probably say, I wrote this when I was dealing with a breakup.
Exactly.
Nobody has to know, and it was part of my journey through it. You know, with Chuck here, I have to get a quick mention. I gave a present to Robert Farnan of your book, Sessions with Sinatra.
Oh my gosh.
And I have a photograph of him with it.
Oh, I'd
I'll
love to
send it to
see
you.
that. Oh, definitely,
Um,
David, thank you.
And
I loved Farnan.
he was my hero, and he mentored me over the phone. It was
Johnny Mandel
unbelievable.
said that he was his hero for string writing. That was his thing, yeah.
I actually sent Johnny Mandel some scores from Farnan.
Oh,
Farnan had written him a fan letter after the Americanization of Emily.
yes, Johnny told me this, yeah.
And it never got passed to him.
Right.
And then Farnan actually said to me, I sent him a fan letter, and I was able to tell Farnan, he never got it.
Right.
He knew that it existed, and it
Yes.
was not passed. And Johnny asked me for a copy of Prelude to the Lake in the Woods. He said, I'm transcribing it, and he said, if I'm going to steal from Farnan, I'd like to have and Farnan goes, send it to him.
That's Johnny.
So it was a
Yeah.
connection to me to both.
Wow.
But your book
Oh,
was,
thanks.
it's such a window to, you know, the recording, and it allowed me to ask Farnan, when I talked a lot with him about those sessions,
Yeah.
and how, you know, Sinatra would end the take on that. You hear it on some of the outtakes where the very thought of you, it starts with just him, and the strings come in, and they come in perfectly, they come in fine, but he goes, stop one more time. He knew already it was going to hit the wall,
Yeah.
you know, and he stopped it rather than waste time. But to hear him just one more time, Rob, you know, and he was in pitch and everything, he wasn't out of tune.
I wish they had worked more together.
Yeah, they
It
just
would've
had
been
that
nice.
one.
Yeah, one album, that was it.
My prior history with Jason was over friend inspiring over on being Anderson or Abramson's. She made some sort of garlic dip that you and I were both hitting at the party.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, you're going to meet people. I didn't know Jason was who he was in the scene. You know, we got talking about both our kids played soccer, right, and we connected on that front. You know, use any of when you go into a club. From working at Jazz Standard, this is piggybacking on some of the stuff that everyone has said here. I used to see, I ran the kids program the same middle school and high school, and once, without malice behind it, one of the kids goes to a waiter. And I said, okay, I got this. and I just said, let me tell you something, the wait staff here I said, do you have a minute, guys? Tell me what you do outside of here. And they were either actors, writers. I said, they're all pursuing a dream, just like you guys are. And after a while, I would see them sitting together in other weeks. You know, that I did it in a kind of way that it was a learning experience, but it was able to build connections for them. And with the way you're writing music right now, I mean, I just can't wait to see where this all goes.
Definitely.
So why don't we take the next 10, 15 minutes or so, and you guys, this is your time to pick some brain, as they say, and who wants to start? Don't all beat yourself to the punch at once.
I still wanna know how, you came up with the name of the website.
Oh, Noel, your website.
Attic toys.
Okay, it's not really, not very exciting.
No, that's a great question.
My late wife had a toy store in Montclair called Toys in the Attic. And she couldn't get Toys in the Attic as a URL. It was taken by a group, a famous group actually.
Aerosmith. Yeah.
There you go.
That was hilarious.
And so she settled on attictoys.com. And when I started my website, I just kind of piggybacked onto hers just to get started. And then when she retired and closed up the business, I just kept it. And Lynn and I have had long discussions about, I should have used my own name, but nobody knows who the hell I am, you know. So that wouldn't really, I suspect people that come to my website are looking for Lucky Thompson or Frank Strozier or somebody like that, but that's the story.
I think it's a great title.
Yeah.
I thought it was like kind of like an homage to those toys that that people might not remember
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah.
and that it's like treasures. You didn't get rid of them; they're still in the attic, but they're there. I thought that
That's
was
where my head went right there
Yeah.
first, so I love that.
Is that where you're keeping Frank Strozier?
That's where I was
Actually, nobody knows where he is, as a matter of fact. We think
Really?
he's still alive, but
Wow.
Really?
we're not sure.
First time I ever went to the Vanguard, I heard Frank Strozier play with Harold Mayburn,
Yeah.
Lewis
He's
Hayes.
from Memphis.
Yeah,
Loved
it
him.
was incredible.
Did you say that you think he's still alive?
Yeah, I think he's still alive, and what happened was he left music in the early 1990s. He left music, and he was teaching school for a while, not music, by the way, I understand, math and English or something like that. And now my research has led me to believe that he's alive and living in a senior community in Rhode Island somewhere, but I'm not absolutely sure.
We need to find out
There's a
where his
road
royalties are
trip,
going.
oh my God.
Well, I've actually been contacted about
Yeah.
people trying to pay him royalties
Ah, so-
Wow.
to see if I knew,
Right.
where the address was.
Right.
I was contacted by Residence Records
Oh, okay.
about this new Shelly Mann
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
that just came out,
Yeah.
because Frank is on that.
Right.
And I gave them what information I had, but I guess they never found Frank.
Wow.
But I think he's still alive.
And Noel is also a great
That's wild.
discographer, in other words,
Yeah.
making detailed records of recordings, solos, how many bars that musician played before it went to somebody else. So all those
Pretty
details are in his website and also on the artfarmer.org website for Art Farmer.
There is no, I don't remember what issue it was, you would. Lucky did a jazz history story for us on Lucky Thompson on his centennial birthday, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Yeah. Have you guys ever seen the I think it's Art Farmer at Sweet Basil video? It's on YouTube. I remember buying the VHS of it.
That's got some
Yeah.
terrible segues, though. They really botched.
It's kind of goofy.
Yeah.
And the sound is slightly off. Like,
Right.
oh, it just drives me crazy when I'm looking at Billy Higginson. It's like you see it in the
Oh.
symbol, and the sound comes in like
Yeah.
a beat later. The whole way, it's just like no.
And now they came out with the audio of that video. The Arcadia Records has now put out the audio of that video from Sweet Basil.
I should
And you
upload
can
it to
hear,
and
I mean,
line it up.
they did such a lousy job.
Really?
You can hear the splices.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
I mean,
But regardless, please watch that video. Like Ron Carter,
Yeah.
like he does more talking than anybody else maybe in it. Because Art was kind of quiet, right? He was such an unassuming, just beautiful. I mean, just what an incredible musician. But just watch that video. Do you want to talk about professional? Like Ron Carter talks about how much he loved Art's professionalism. It's like when he called Ron for a gig, Ron calls Art for a gig, and Art calls him back like with them. It's like he sends him the music and he's checking out the music. He calls him up, saying, "What do you want me to do on this section?" Like that kind of service that Art gave to the music, like in advance of the gig, it taught me how to take on gigs. Like when people ask me to do a gig, I say, you know, nowadays it's in text. It used to be email. And I reply back, say
I
anything.
send both, by the way, I send both, because just in case.
Exactly, and I
you know.
appreciate that. I like to reply, is there any music you need me to check out in advance? Do you have any MP3s? Do you have any PDFs? Please send them my way. Or outside of that, if there's any sounds you want me to listen to. Like simple things like that, it really helps you prepare for the gig, and it also lets the people know that are hiring you that you care. You know, it's like, I sit here and I'm looking at this three group of people and how much they have hired me over the years. I realize, like, I met him, like talking about having a good attitude. I know none of these people would have hired me if I didn't keep a cool attitude. I met Jason at Yoshi's, and flash forward, he comes to New York and I see him working at Lincoln Center, and I thought to myself, I'm glad I treated him nice. Not to say that everything is transactional, but still it's like, I just thought to myself, man, if I had been a jerk to him, you know, that might have been how many times I've shown up working at Lincoln Center and he was in charge of the show. You know, he had me MD the Betty Carter show, you know. He had hired me for a few record sessions here and there, gigs.
We met in a flute big band.
Right.
We were playing in a flute big band.
32 flutes.
32 flutes, okay? And I'm like, how's this gonna go? It's gonna be a disaster. And then he started playing, and you know, Holly Hoffman.
Right, yes.
She goes, you're gonna love Alvester. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I know that Alvester, I did a score for a documentary, and I was like, you know, it was a lot for me.
That documentary.
And I'm like, I know Alvester is gonna just do whatever, and whatever happens, he'll go with it. And he did, and it was nice, and it was fun actually. I actually had fun, even though it was stressful.
Yeah, no, it was beautiful. You did a great job. And working with David, who was the singer? I can't remember her name.
So I do remember when I met you first was when, this is before you and Regina were even on each other's radar.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't, I didn't know. Was when we were doing the Irish project with Lewis Nash.
Yeah.
But I brought you in for the Cassandra Wilson.
Cassandra, that's
I don't know. Do I owe you an apology? Or
No. He's trying to be nice. Cassandra can be tough, but see, I work with Betty Carter now. Like, that's,
I was gonna say, you gotta be like.
This is a great lesson. I learned a lot like this. Like we're being much nicer than a lot of cats. Like that whole tough love kind of thing. Like I know there's a conversation amongst young musicians about some people being really rough, or sometimes we are called the gatekeepers. But I mean, I also studied with Ellis Marcellus, who made me cry the first time I met him.
Oh, wow.
And that was in high school. And I really appreciate that, actually, because I didn't know anything about music. I just had a great teacher. I shouldn't say I didn't know anything, but I didn't know hardly anything about jazz, and I was just mimicking my teacher. I knew how to read a big band chart and kick a band because I was taking his three ideas, or the three that I could take. And I sight read my butt off, made it into the band, had no concept of language because I hadn't listened to the music. I remember at that first rehearsal, Ellis coming over to asking the band, it was a big band, and said, okay, all you young people in here, who wants to be a professional musician or wants to study music later on once they get into college? I raised my hand and one other kid did. This kid was like, he was awesome. He played all the reeds. He was well on his way. And then he just proceeded to just put his foot so far. So, I mean, it was like, what are your drums? Look at these drums, like the big rock kit with the hole in front head, tuned really low, the big rock sticks, you know? And he said, who do you listen to? I said, well, I have Gene Krupa, Buddy Rich, The Drum Battle, I have Dave Brubeck's Take 5, and I have Miles Davis 4 and More. So that's what, I grew up in the suburbs, and everybody was always talking about Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich. And he said, I don't fault you for that, that's fine. The Brubeck and the Krupa, that's just where you grew up. Because where I grew up, everybody was talking about that. Nobody talked about Max Roach. Nobody hardly talked about Art Blakey. And he said, the Miles Davis stuff, you don't even understand. Which he was right. Like, as a teenager, it took me 4 or 5 years later to hear to hear So What on Kind of Blue rather than So What played at lightning speed, and they're putting all these different alterations in and stuff. I didn't even know what a blues was. And so he had me literally crying at the end of that rehearsal, and then I had to like kind of almost beg him for a list of names. And I don't teach this way. I believe in do unto others as you would have them do unto you. I would never teach that way. But it did help build my character, I gotta say. In that I had to reach out to him because he wouldn't give me the information initially, which I thought was kind of weird, but still, I came up with this premise, okay, I'm gonna go to his office from the suburbs where I'm gonna go down to Richmond, my mom drove me down there, and I'm gonna interview him for a thesis, a paper that I was writing, which was Jazz Liberated the Black Man. And he saw that idea, and he's like, what are you talking about? You know? So now I'm dejected again. I said, oh, Mr. Marcellus, you said I need to listen more. Since that doesn't work, you said I need to listen. Who do I listen to? And he wrote me this list of Papa Joe, Big Sick, Elvin Jones, Philly Joe Jones, Specs Wright, Billy Higgins, Joe Chambers, Lewis Nash, Jeff Tame Watts. Like, it was just an incredible long list of drummers, and Max Roach was at the top. And I went and bought the complete Max Roach on Emerson, like one of those 90-minute cassettes. And I just remember listening to that over and
You all know what a
over again
cassette
for
is.
1
You
week.
have
Yeah, I wore it out and got stuck in my dad's truck cassette player. But by the time I came back to that next rehearsal, I just remember him not reaming me, not like saying you sound terrible. And my teacher at the time, who was one of his students, he said to me later on, he said, man, Ellis was really impressed with what you did. He said, man, Ellis asked me, what'd you do with that kid? He said, I didn't do anything. He just got some records. And that was because of Ellis. And I'm kind of circling back, like that kind of like tough kind of love is there. And I know it's like something that's part of the scene. And I'm curious about your input. Is there anything on the scene right now that you feel is really tough? Like, what's the hardest thing?
When you were saying that, I was thinking about, I had a similar experience. I studied with saxophone player Stephen Riley.
Okay.
When I was like first coming up, I don't know if anybody knows Steve's playing, but he was like one of the first tenor players in Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. And personally, you know, he had some issues. He had to leave New York, so he came back to North Carolina, where he's from. And he, you know, I'm like this kid. I was in like 9th grade, you know, and I just started getting into jazz, and like, you know, me and my friends were kind of into it. For me, it was like a social thing, and so I thought I knew a lot more than I really did because, you know, we were talking amongst each other about it, and so it was kind of like an echo chamber. So I get up with him, and he's like, "What are the chords to a blues?" And, you know, and I'm like, "Oh, like I think it's like this." You know, like I didn't really understand it, but I was speaking, you know, I was talking a lot, and he's like, "Okay, first thing, like don't talk as much. Like you don't know anything. Let me talk to you and show you what it is." And he's like, "Okay, sing a fourth." Like I couldn't do it, you know. And he's like, "Okay, like you don't know anything. Like let's establish a baseline that like there's so much for you to learn, and if you're serious about this." And then he played, and I was like, "Oh, like I'd never heard anything like that." And so then I kept studying with him. I'd get lessons with him on and off, and you know I checked out. I'd listen to the things that he'd tell me to listen to. He really got me into Charlie Parker and you know Sonny live at the Village Vanguard. And later we talked about Train and stuff. And so that was just like, but you know, at first he was very, I wouldn't even say like, you know, it's tough love, but it was commanding.
Yeah.
You know, and like really, you know, just truthful. So that really helped me, and that put me on the track to always try to strive for that.
Yeah. I remember when the first time I saw Charlie Parker, like a piece of media, it was the end of a marching band concert, marching band rehearsal, and my teacher, Padre Burke, was helping put like the field pylons in his trunk, and I saw this cassette. It said the complete Savoy and Dial recordings of Charlie Parker, and I was like, "What's that?" He goes, "Oh, just take it, you can check it out." You know, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" And I remember we were playing Anthropology that year, and I was like, "Oh, this is the song, like that's that song," you know. And I learned so much from that. It's just like, and you're taking me back with those memories. The first time you hear something, that's what you listen to.
Yeah.
But going back to like being positive, like what you were saying, Sydney, about like your presence, that's like really, really crucial. I feel like your attitude and how we were talking about, like you were talking about being, how you handle yourself backstage, because when you're out in the world, you're always performing. You're always on stage. People are watching you. I remember going to like a music camp, and it was Clark Terry's Big Bad Jazz Camp. It was in college. And my sophomore year, I think, in college, I went to this camp. It was amazing. But Ed Shaughnessy was there. It was incredible fun. It was Snooky Young was in the trumpet section. Clark, Champion Fulton's father, Stephen Fulton was also in the brass and trumpet section. Marshall Royal was on saxophone, and Marcus McLaurin was playing bass. Pianist, but he reached out to me because I talked about this story, and that because I was teaching an adult ensemble recently, subbing for someone, and one of the fellow students was in that adult ensemble. This is like 30 years later or something. And I put a picture and I talked about that event, and I talked about how at the end of one of the rehearsals, it was like, I think it was Stephen Fulton asked me to play with the big band, so I got a chance to play as a student with Marshall Royal and Snooky Young and Clark, and I was like, oh my God, and I just remember thinking, wow, and Ed Shaughnessy showed me the shuffle afterwards. And then I talked to Snooky, well, Snooky, at the end I was leaving, Snooky said, I'm gonna be uptown. So I said, you seem like you come from good stock. You have a good smile, and just remember to keep smiling, because your smile will get you further through life than anything else.
Well, the very first time I ever saw Alvester play drums, your smile is what led the room. I mean, yes, I could tell your drumming was delicious, but it was watching your face. And I was in the back of the room for that concert, and I'm like, oh my gosh, a drummer that looks like they're having a great time. And then your personality met the smile, and it's, you know, it's all true, but it really, you know, you only have one time to make a first impression, right? So you want to lead with your best foot forward. To Len's point, being dressed to the nines or whatnot. So I interviewed, oh my God, why just is always happening? Good thing I'm not on Jeopardy. Houston Person, several years ago, and he met me in New York to have, and I brought a videographer with me, and we were interviewing him because we were doing a tribute to Bucky Pizzarelli. And it was I certainly didn't ask him to come dressed concert attire for the interview, but he showed up looking so smart.
He's always dressed
Well, he
like
does.
that. I recorded with him, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yes, so he must, that's his daily wear,
that was his
but
thing.
I remember saying to him, I'm like, oh my gosh, you didn't have to be so dressed up, and he's like, Sid, this is my job, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And he said
So
when
true.
he had come to New York and first met Bucky had been super influential in getting him on terra firma for his career in New York. And Bucky always was dressed to the nines. And he said, you know, I feel like I learned from the heel of the master, and I wouldn't dream of showing up any other way. And he said, but honey, you came in to see me today, so I wanted to look nice for you. And I thought, you know, that was so sweet of him. But it was so true that, you know, he just always brought it. And that generation, obviously, musician, things were a little bit different, you know, but.
There's another very great story, which I know you've played with David Lenhart, right?
Yes.
I interviewed him about John Hendricks, and he said he went to audition for John Hendricks. John Hendricks was having an audition for pianists on a Saturday morning. About 40 pianists showed up. He said most of them were wearing jeans, and I was wearing a three-piece suit. Now, if I didn't play piano well, he wouldn't have hired me. But I'm convinced to this day the reason he hired me because I was.
It's so.
Well, because those guys were old school.
Yeah.
I mean, they recorded in suits and ties, they gigged in suits and ties, everything, you know, that was their world.
I remember one time being, like when I used to tour with Abby Lincoln, she always looked like she was ready to go to the stage.
Yeah.
And when you're on the road, like nowadays, a lot of times people do, I know they carry their luggage onto the plane, but back then we could still check stuff underneath the plane. And I remember those times where the luggage didn't show up, and fortunately, I had on a tire that looked presentable so that I could go on the stage. And I watch some people travel and I'm thinking, man, they're just sweats on, they get to the plane, and I'm thinking,
You got your jammies on, and if you have to go right to the stage,
Exactly.
you're screwed. So I was at the show one night with, oh my God, Harry Connick Jr. was doing a show, and Harry always performs in a suit, not always a tie, but he has a shirt, suit, pants on. He walked out on stage, in awesome looking jeans and a great t-shirt, but I'm like, somebody's head is gonna roll because that man never steps on stage in a pair of jeans. So obviously, as a fellow performer or promoter, I'm like, oh, somebody didn't bring the garment bag got left somewhere, not here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I have been at a show for my own self, and the rehearsal ran long, and I, to have to know that I still had to go back and change, I'm like, never again. Just go dressed. What's the worst thing that's gonna happen to us, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nothing's gonna, other than making myself crazy trying to run back to change my clothes, right? So,
I've been in that sound check position of being coming out of a sound check and it's so tight, so that I generally, especially with the drums, because oftentimes I'm like, I like to be there first before everyone so I can tune, and then even then thereafter I might spend some more time tuning or warming up, and then it's like, okay, here's the food. Now you got 3 seconds to change your clothes. So I tend to like to be ready, but I gotta say, and it's like different. We're all born with different whatever mountains to climb. And as a black man, I feel like when I travel and I'm dressed better, I get better treatment. You will too, regardless of your color. I think that I know that the first time I went to the airport, where I was really, really dressed and was going on a long tour with Abby in Europe, and I had on a fedora, I had on like a long, like nice, like kind of felt kind of jacket, and like a coat and nice pants. And I remember getting out of the car, and this gentleman, I called a black car to take me to the airport, so I was really feeling fancy. So I get out the car, and the door, and one of the guys on the sidewalk opens the door for me. And he looks at me, and says, "Oh, I assume you'll be traveling first class today, sir?" And I said, "No, not this time." But it felt so great to be treated like that.
But I'm open to it.
Exactly. You hook me up, But
That's
but
great.
that kind of, but you generally will be treated like the way you look, and that's something that
I haven't been as meticulous with that for traveling as you have, and I'm in the wrong here because there's a few times where I remember being upgraded at Heathrow Airport. The lady says, "Excuse me, sir, are you traveling alone? Come this
Oh,
way."
yeah.
Wow.
And they,
Well, I
and it
have
was
been
because
upgraded.
they can't put you in business class if you're
Yeah.
not wearing suit and tie.
Yep, I have been upgraded, and I noticed every time I, just get randomly upgraded, I was looking good because that's what I chose to wear anyway. So.
well, we're gonna end here by being
Upgrading everyone.
yes, by being upgraded. So I want to thank all of our special guests today for joining us and bringing your love for the craft and your respect and knowledge and your support of our young up-and-coming musicians. You are the future of jazz. So keep that in mind, wear that mantle with pride. To our house band today, thank you so very much.
So thank you
There you go.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It has been a marvelous afternoon. We started at about 11:30 this morning with the young musicians, our winners, showing up and working through their compositions and working through the rest of the program. Then we had a lovely roundtable luncheon, and now here we are to the concert part of the show, and I'm so delighted to see all of you here to support these really fine young musicians. I want to thank our esteemed veterans, David O'Rourke, Don Radin, Marianne McSweeney, and Alvester Garnett, who have given us their day. We also had Jason Olaine here from Lincoln Center, and I think he's the only one that's left the building so far. So anyway, it really has been remarkable to hear their wisdom and their stories, and I think the winners have benefited greatly. But it's no fun to be up here without all of you, so it's really lovely to have you here. Before I say anything else about our 4 young musicians, this is our 4th year. We'll start the competition process again in January. I think we're on our 4th year, or maybe it's our 5th year of our new format, which makes it a actual competition. And we have not had any vocalists apply, which breaks my heart. So I'm going to put this out in the universe that if any of you would like to help support financially that category, we would like to add it this year. The scholarship program has been funded mostly through a very, very generous donation from Nan Hughes Pool. And Nan sent this message to us today. I'm so delighted to help in any small way, applauding and supporting emerging artists through the New Jersey Jazz Society. We need talented musicians in our world. Time and again, I read of people who are healed by music and who find friendship, solace, and understanding through listening in or playing music. Hearty congratulations to all this year's recipients. So she has championed this competition, but in order to add a category and in order to be able to produce today's event, I need some more help. So perhaps some of you would like to help with that. And if you would like to help with that, you can reach me at PRES, P-R-E-S, at NJJS.org. All this information is on our website, just NJJS.org. So today we have our 4 winners, and these 4 young men have been really stellar. You know, it's interesting, you send out an email, it's kind of crazy what you get back sometimes. But these 4 deserve to be here today, and not only for their fine musicianship, but also their interpersonal skills, their communication skills, all the things that you would want in winners. Interestingly enough, this year we had 2 winners from William Patterson, and we had 2 winners from Princeton, and they were all so, so close. I was really glad I was not a part of the judging panel, but today we have Lasse Corson, who was from William Patterson, Isaac Yee from Princeton, Joe Foglia from William Patterson, and Gabe Chalik from Princeton. And all 4 of these fine musicians participated in more than 1 year. Joe Foglia, some of you might remember, was our winner in the performance category last year. He took 2nd place. This year he won the competition for his original composition. So that was very exciting. And like I said, all 4 of these fine young gentlemen have, put their applications in on more than 1 year. So anyway, without further ado, I would like to introduce the band. Hello, band.
Oh, hi.
David O'Rourke on guitar, and David O'Rourke has graciously been our music director this year because our usual music director, Mr. Don Braden, had a family problem and couldn't be here, so that was, but now they're all here. We have Alvester Garnett on drums. Joe. Isaac. Gabe. And Lasse.
Thank you. Take it away.
Thank We didn't stop though.
Do it now.
Stopping at the
Madison Community Arts Center.
Community Arts Center. Okay, so you're gonna be replaced by the next? Yes. Worthy constituent. Put your hands together one more time for Joe. Isaac. Put your hands together for Isaac. Yeah. All right. How about drum intro? Too bright. Brightly. next adventure is gonna be one of the original compositions, I'm not sure whose, but I can read it. That I can do it. I can read it.
Joe's.
I guess it's Joe's.
It's Joe.
According to a few, reliable sources, multiple sources, Joe Foglia, let Joe say something about his piece, if you would like to.
Yeah, so this composition, it is called Around the Sun and Back Again. I wrote this in a really tumultuous time for me. I kind of felt like everything I was doing to not nearly 100% of the best of my ability. You know, my relationship, music, school, all of this, you know, and it was really, you know, constricting me a lot. So I decided, you know, one of these things has to go, and so I ended my relationship. And, I know, right? In the wake of this, you know, I thought, you know, that this would give me more time to focus on music, and I was burnt out. I didn't want to come back to it. I, you know, realized that, you know, maybe my love of it was dying or something else. I was, you know, it was really, really messing with me, and I, you know, would just go to the piano and, like, you know, experiment with ideas and things, and so this was one of them that I had. I didn't really have a title for it or anything. And then fast forward a year later, I kind of realized that it had been a year since I was dealing with this, and, you know, I hadn't found an answer or something. And then I realized, you know, that, you know, I really have the privilege to play music, and that it's, you know, such a healing thing, and something that can really support, you know, the rest of my life, you know, not just emotionally, but, you know, socially. You know, I get to meet all of these amazing people and play with them, and like we were talking about earlier at the lunch, you know, we always have a community in this music. There's always people that we can rely on, that we know that we can play with, and so, you know, my getting more experiences doing that and everything, I kind of, you know, found some solace, if you will. So this song is called Around the Sun and Back Again. Thank you.
Maybe I'm on this too.
Yeah.
I'll just ask.
Come on.
I guess I should ask myself. Excuse me a minute. This is my set over here.
Oh.
See that?
See what happens?
See what happens when you pay attention? I was just so clever when I stepped onto the stage. That's how slick I am. All right, ready?
Yeah, we're doing that upstairs, by the way.
Okay, you count it off then.
Oh,
You articulated the situation.
1, 2.
Intro?
Sure.
All but how do I say that?
Yeah, it's not good enough.
Well, correct us all.
It's latte.
Latte. Put your hands together for latte. One more time for Mr. Garnett on drums, our best. David O'Rourke. Yeah, my prank buddy.
Yeah, plank bud.
Miss Marianne McSweeney. One more tune to set, a little break. Little Ellington and Fairhorn, actually, right? You have an intro?
Yeah, little trio.
Do you think?
And if you need to get something else to eat or to drink or to use the restrooms, which are in this hallway out here, we'll be back at 4 for the second half. So thank you. Back. So before we get started on the second set, there's a couple other thank yous that I want to mention. I want to thank my fellow board member Cynthia Thecity for her generous donation today to help make this all possible and for part of the lunch and everything, so thank you, Cynthia. I have other fellow board members in the room, so if you'll raise your hand. Thank you all for being here and doing what you do. And lastly, I didn't get the tickets, but we'll have a, yeah.
Would you like them right now?
Yeah, bring them. Bring it on. So while Jay is bringing the tickets for our little raffle, I want to point out the programs that they were sort of scattered throughout. I want to mention our competition judges. Don Braden is one of them. Maria Bilston was another of our judges this year. Ted Chubb, and then Jason Oling, who has left for the day, but he was also a judge this year. And I believe you're signed up for another year? Will you sign up for another year? As I put him on the spot, will you sign up for another year? Okay, perfect. Yay! Yeah, thank you so much. So, raffle tickets that you got when you came in. 438-3703. 3703, the last three digits, 3703. Do we have a winner?
Check it, 3703.
Jay, I need another one. Last chance, going. What's your number? 3703. The last four digits. I'll look it up. Can somebody look it up?
3703.
That's her winner. Thank you. All right, back to the main event and this amazing band. And you know, I don't know if you all know this, but the four winners, two of them I believe have played together, but for the most part they've never played as an ensemble, and certainly they've never played in this ensemble, so jazz at its finest.
That's right. That's right.
And now, a couple of our esteemed colleagues will pop up here for a little bye-bye Blackbird. Come on, Dave. All right. I have it. And here is bye-bye Blackbird. At definitely a different tempo. Whatever it's gonna be. You guys decide on one? Miles, one of those Miles tempos?
Oh, we can do it there, sure.
Or down here. But I think.
I think upstairs.
Yeah. You have a coffee, you can play upstairs a little bit Okay, one more time, put your hands together for Gabe and Isaac and Lasse and the crew. We start off with Alone Together, and then we follow that with Bye Bye Blackbird. And we're gonna move on now and play Gabe's tune, which he's gonna tell you something about, I think. He will. All right.
Go, Gabe.
Put your hands together for Gabe.
So the tune I composed is entitled "Song for My Brother," and I wrote it with my brother. How many of you have a loved one that's far away from you? I'm sure a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So I wrote this as I was about to go back to school at the end of the summer, and I was playing at the piano with my brother, and we were talking together. We were listening to music, and it was a really beautiful moment. But obviously, sometimes you have to leave your loved ones, and so I wrote this thinking about him and with him, and every time I play it, it's with him in mind. Thank you so much.
guys got a little time for Gabe, Song for My Brother, right? Yeah. Not the sad truth, but the happy truth. Ironically. Well, Ironically, that tune was called Triste, which means sad, of course. But it was an Antonio Carlos Jobim tune. So we're into our last tune, and I think we're gonna invite up everyone, our other fellow winners, joining the party. Put your hands together one more time for Joe on tenor, one more time for Lasse on piano, one more time for Isaac on tenor saxophone, one more time for Gabriel on trumpet. How about it for Marianne McSweeney on the bass, David O'Rourke on guitar, Alvester Garnett on drums. My name is Don Braden on saxophone flute. And put your hands together one more time for Sydney Halpin for all her work in making all this happen. Hold on. I'm gonna ask you to give a little stronger because you don't know how much work this woman does. I know because we work together on this stuff, and the board members know. Girlfriend is tireless on this stuff. She wants everything to be at a high level and is serious, and will not rest until stuff is really cool. So put your hands together seriously. appreciation. All right, so how about a little, what's it, Village Bounce that we have on the list there? How about a little rhythm section swing? It's gonna be a 12-bar blues, and everybody gets a piece of this, and we're just gonna swing out and see where it goes.
Okay.
All right, rhythm section, set it up. Nice groove swing. 1, 2, rhythm section.
Don, I cannot thank you enough for sharing your gifts with these amazing young musicians. Yeah, please. I am so proud of these kids. Oh, so proud. I am so proud of all of you, and thank you for bringing your A+ game today. For all of us, you really, and the composition writers, thank you Joe, thank you Gabe, thank you Isaac, thank you Lasse for hanging with the big boys, as they say, and girls. So thank you for that. Couple things I just want to mention. Please take the programs home with you, and they don't do me any good to go in the garbage when you leave. So know these kids' names, because these fine musicians are going places. Yes, please. Round of applause for that. I want to thank John Petrowski, who is the executive director here at Impact. Thank you, John. Thank you, Caroline, for always doing so great for us on the sound. To my bestie, who may not be my bestie anymore, Patty Graham, for all the work she did for food services today, for this luncheon and everything. Thank you so much, Patty. And I want to thank all of you, because like I said before, without you, playing to an empty room is really no fun. So thank you for coming out and supporting new talent, seasoned talent, for supporting the Jazz Society as a whole. We can't do without you. You know, membership, donations, and by the way, there's been a few angels in the room today, so I don't know who you are, but thank you. You know who you are for putting money in the basket, so thank you so much for that. Wow. We hope to see you on December 8th for our Summer Camargo Trio. Take the flyers home, give them out to your neighbors, to your friends. Come and support this show. This young lady, she's killer, and you're going to love her. So do that for me, please. And lastly, if you are not part of our e-blast list and would like to be, there is a sign-up sheet in the back. And I think I got it all. Could I have gotten through my whole list? Yes. So thank you very much. Get safely. The holiday season is upon us, so wherever you're doing for Thanksgiving and whatnot, enjoy, and we'll see you back here in December. Thank you.